Hey, Brian Mahone here, cyber insurance specialist at EHD Insurance here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and owner of insuranceformsps.com. This is part two of the series of my keynote talk at XChange Security in Frisco, Texas, of the summer of 2023. So, the 135 MSPs in attendance were probably most interested in how to leverage cyber insurance to grow your MSP. So let me make myself smaller here and run through this. So we want to understand first, how do cyber underwriters rate in a cyber insurance policy? First, they look at industry, size by revenue, the type and amount of data they have, a million records, 100,000 records. Usually they ask, less than, greater than, 3 or 4 different categories. And is it, mainly PII, PFI, PHI? Have you had an incident, your loss history, loss runs? And if you have had a incident, how did it occur? When did it occur? What happened? How bad was it? Tell a narrative of what you learned and why your company's a good risk. And of course, underwriters prefer if you haven't had an incident. But you'll notice the only thing you can really control out of these 5 is your IT controls, your cyber hygiene. And most small, medium-sized businesses rely on MSPs to implement those and help them with those. And I often get the question, well, how do I get better cyber insurance pricing? And, really it's the IT controls, right? So if you have a company that's identical across the first 4 metrics, company A and company B, and company B doesn't really have great controls, and company B is killing it. They've implemented a ton of policies and procedures and security software. That swing in cyber insurance premiums can be upwards of 30%. So it's not quite as simple as bundle your home and auto and save 15%, but yes, there are discounts available. And those specific IT controls, shout out to Kevin Merchant from Risk Placement Services. This is a great document that RPS is, who's a wholesale broker, released. So it reminds me of a traffic light, good, better, best, red, yellow, green. All these cyber insurance underwriters want to see majority of companies, regardless of size, to have these things in the red implemented. So obviously MFA is huge. Everybody knows that. And it's not a yes or no question, do you have MFA? Broadly speaking, underwriters want MFA to be implemented across 4 areas. And they want it whether employees are on site or logging in remotely. They want it across the company network, so where you can access your little file explorer or your share drive, company email, Microsoft 365, Gmail, doesn't matter, on your phone, not on your phone, on your computer, company email, IT administrator access, so your MSP should have MFA when you're working with your customer. Or really any internal IT folks. And then referred to number 4 as privileged access. So, hopefully not everybody at every company has all the same access. Maybe there's a PAM solution in place. But these privileged access folks are maybe the HR and finance people. Maybe they have access to QuickBooks or payroll or your PEO like ADP, TimeSaver or something. And really, Travelers, a big insurance carrier, kicked off this whole MFA debacle in June of 2020. They did a cyber claims study reviewing all their cyber claims at the beginning of the pandemic. And 80% of them they found could have been avoided if MFA was deployed in this way. So that was, they were kind of a first mover, and then the whole industry adopted it. Of course, backups are important. A lot of carriers want the 3-2-1 backup format, or just multiple copies, air-gapped, offline copies. EDR and MDR solutions is kind of the next big step. And then you'll see PAM solutions and SIEM solutions and SOCs and more complicated things. And these underwriters kind of use these across industries and sizes of companies, where if you're $100 million manufacturer, they're going to expect you to be more in the green, and if maybe you're a 1 million revenue doctor's office, maybe they are really only expecting things in the red. So, of course, subject to change from each carrier, and as time goes on, I'm sure this video will date itself quickly. So there's also more scrutiny on recommended IT security policies and procedures. I know, MSPs love to push, software and security solutions, but a lot of the times vulnerabilities can be mitigated from about human error by policies and procedures. So just a question I'll pose is, as a privacy attorneys often help draft and finalize versions of these documents. Cyber insurance specialist insurance agencies often can offer templates versions of these. As an MSP, what can you guys provide? Do you kind of dive into this more policy and procedure creating? And then, of course, increased privacy laws increases a need for cyber insurance. And I'm not a privacy attorney, so this is all I'll mention on this topic, but this is a great resource from iap.org that keeps everybody up to snuff on what each state is doing. But really, the bulk of why MSPs should recommend cyber insurance boils down to being a trusted advisor, and this is how I think about it. I actually saw a survey on LinkedIn polling MSP owners on their stance on cyber insurance, and the results went something like this, from left to right. We mandate it via our master services agreement. We strongly recommend it to clients in our master service agreement. And then over where you're acting more as a vendor and less of an advisor, we suggest it, but we're indifferent. And then finally, the little icon sitting at the beach, that's the laissez-faire approach. Not my business, not my problem. They avoid the conversation altogether. So I wanted to take a minute to talk about why every MSP should really strive to be in Group 1 and Group 2. And I've talked about this with members of the National Society of IT Service Providers, and there'll be a link below to learn more about what they do. But really, number one is it takes pressure off the MSP's tech, right? So, how many MSP's clients think, oh, if I have an incident, my IT guy will handle that. It's not likely that most MSPs have incident response capabilities in-house. Maybe they have a preferred vendor or trusted party, but your clients will certainly, who've trusted you to protect their IT network, feel like you failed and point the finger at you, and you pay, this is your fault. And depending on the type and cause of the cyber incident, they can't 100% rely on your tech E&O coverage to save them all the time. If they want proper public relations specialists and privacy attorneys to serve them, keep their name out of the local newspaper, and mitigate impacts from privacy laws and fines and penalties, they're going to want their own first-party cyber insurance policy. I often joke that a bank who's giving out a line of credit or a loan for a piece of equipment or real estate requiring property insurance makes sense. It's just like an MSP requiring their client to have cyber insurance. Number two is really it improves that trusted IT advisor status. We're very used to this in our business, and independent insurance agencies are very similar to MSPs, where we all work with the same insurance carriers. A lot of MSPs work with all the same security vendors, and it's hard to differentiate, and really it comes down to just service. And being able to recommend local adjacent professional service providers. We do this all the time in our industry with bankers and attorneys and CPAs. From an MSP's perspective, maybe they're doing this with cyber insurance professionals or privacy attorneys or HR consultants. Really kind of levels up their game and goes beyond IT services to help clients overcome obstacles in other areas beyond information technology. Thirdly, and arguably the most interesting and most important, is recommending or strongly mandating cyber insurance at your MSP really increases your monthly reoccurring revenue. And it does it in two ways, both actively and passively. So if you've ever read a cyber insurance application, you notice they're all about IT controls. and they almost match comically the services offered page of an MSP's website. And these business owners, they don't speak IT lingo, they don't speak insurance lingo, they need interpreters, and it's natural for them to ask their MSP to help them with these cyber insurance questionnaires, right? And a lot of the times, to even qualify for coverage, these businesses need to implement stronger IT controls, which of course, additional IT project work to, implement MFA or EDR or a PAM solution or maybe a privacy policy. So to qualify, to get preferred treatment from underwriters, maybe you've been telling them to do XYZ for years and years, but now the cyber insurance underwriter is making them do it and they feel uncomfortable about going without the insurance. So now they're actually willing to do it. But also, so passively, right? I mentioned these cyber insurance carriers, a lot of them are using external scanning technology like a BitSite to scan for common vulnerabilities. And maybe there's an open RDP port open to the internet, or they need to update an SSL certificate or something. So you could have, I've had this happen with my client where they buy the policy, 6 months through the policy term, they get an alert from the cyber insurance carrier saying, hey, fix this vulnerability. What do? They forward the email to their MSP. Their MSP says, oh yeah, we can do that for an extra $300 a year. And boom, no salesperson, no pitch, not much thought, and the MSP is generating a little bit of extra revenue, just looking out for their client, just like the cyber insurance carrier. So, and then number 4, really, I just wanted to hit home. Cyber insurance is all about protecting the consumers of technology to weather the financial loss from a data breach. So this means, your client's email or software system can't be accessed for days, weeks, or months. They're a sitting duck. They need to pay their overhead, like their salaries, their taxes, their insurance, their monthly MSP's bill. So the business interruption loss that these cyber insurance policies have obviously protects your client's bottom line, but could also protect your own if it's a big customer of yours. So why, partner really with a cyber insurance professional? I mean, one is peace of mind, right? So you are protecting your tech E&O by knowing your clients all have their own cyber insurance policy, right? So mitigates your risk, reduces your cost of insurance, and keeps claims off your coverage. You could also add a lot of value to any cyber risk assessments you're already doing. I mean, a cyber insurance professional can be kind of your go-to resource for your sales team when they get any cyber insurance questions, or maybe even they bring them to a meeting with a client, or introduce them via email. I mean, they could be as hands-on or hands-off as you want. But doing, cyber insurance policy reviews, alternative quotes or new quotes, guidance on deductibles, coverage, and limits, kind of benchmarking their peers and competitors, what kind of cyber insurance they're buying. The IT guys, have to consult on IT, and the insurance guys have to consult on insurance. And there's a gray area where we kind of collide, right? But we have to stick to our lanes, and the reason being is really it's an insurance problem. The IT guys have tech E&O to cover their professional technology services, and the insurance guys have, and I'll say gals, have agency errors and omissions insurance. So as soon as I am recommending a security solution, I am not covered under my professional liability. And as soon as an MSP is recommending a specific cyber insurance carrier or insurance product, they are no longer an IT consultant. They are acting as an unlicensed insurance agent, which is illegal. So we have to stick to our lanes to some extent, but there's a lot of crossover. Some of that crossover is digital marketing. I mean, I do webinars, in-person events, lunch and learns, help augment monthly newsletters for MSPs to talk about cyber insurance. Actually working with an insured cyber security phishing awareness training vendor right now. Shout out to Finn solutions on a e-guide. So that's another way. And then of course, one-to-one mutual referrals. Hey, I'm working on this account. I'm trying to write their cyber insurance, but their controls are horrible. Please talk to them. Or hey, we have this client and their cyber insurance is awful. Please talk to them. So it's can be mutual. So that kind of concludes our part 2 of the presentation, and click below to watch part 3, tips and tricks and best practices for growing your MSP through cyber insurance. Thanks so much.